Friends, hey, welcome to episode 8 of the Tune In. Happy New Year. This is the first episode that I've recorded in 2021, and it's going to be a really, really special one. Today here in Brooklyn, it's January 6th. It's a crazy day in this country. It's a crazy day in my hometown of Washington, D.C. I'm really upset about what's going on there with the sort of MAGA insurrectionist tantrum, as it were. And but I'm glad that I was able to tape this show. It was very helpful for me. And I really appreciate you watching, and I appreciate my guest, who I'm going to introduce very soon. If you could please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, right? On your right, that little red YouTube subscribe button, that would really help. And as always, if you'd like to support the show, you can send a donation to Venmo at Ben Tyree, Cash App $Ben Tyree. Like a lot of musicians, New York City, I am unemployed since March. It takes a lot of work to make these episodes, even though I really, really enjoy it. So, I'm lucky that Congress has passed some temporary relief for us here. Still, the future remains uncertain, and we're just going to keep plugging away, I suppose. Sponsorships. If you have a product or an organization and you'd like to sponsor the tune-in, hit me up. Contact at bentyree.net. We'll talk. If it's something, that we're ethically in line on, yeah, I'm open. I'm wide open. Cool. As always, bentyree.net. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to stay in touch. Cool. So we have a very, very special guest today, a dear old friend of mine. We go back since the 90s. It's crazy to even think that. We talk about it a little bit in the episode. He was one of a handful of mentors that encouraged me to move to New York City when I did move to New York City. And he's been a dear friend for more than 20 years. He's one of the most inspiring musicians that I've known personally. Yeah. And, there's a lot I can say about him. We're going to talk about a lot of things in this episode. I'm going to read his little bio. So I'm going to start printing these out because I didn't like the glare from reading the bios. But yeah, from now on, we're going to go old school. I'm going to read the copy. So John Medeski, famed keyboardist John Medeski, is not easily contained to a single project or genre. He is credited on over 300 works to date, most notably as one-third of the groundbreaking trio Medeski, Martin, and Wood. Equally comfortable behind a Steinway grand piano, Hammond organ, or any number of vintage keyboards, Medeski is a highly sought-after improviser and bandleader whose projects range from work with John Zorn, The Word, featuring Robert Randolph, North Mississippi Allstars, Phil Lesh, Don Was, John Scofield, Coheed and Cambria, Susana, Baca, Sean Lennon, Marc Ribot, Irma Thomas, Blind Boys of Alabama, Dirty Dozen Brass Band, and many more. Classically trained, Medeski grew up in Ft.Lauderdale, Florida, where as a teenager he played with Jaco Pastorius before heading north to attend the New England Conservatory. He released his first solo piano record, A Different Time, on Sony's Okeh Records in 2013. And current projects include a new album in the works with his band MadSkillet, featuring Terrence Higgins, Kirk Joseph, and Will Bernard, and HUDSON, a collaboration with Jack DeJohnette, John Scofield, and Larry Grenadier. Plus a documentary on Medeski Martin Wood. That should be exciting. He's done so much stuff, and he continues to do a lot of stuff. He's an amazing person and a dear human being, and I'm very, very, very thrilled to welcome my dear friend and yours, John Medeski. John, the mighty
Ben.
Medeski, welcome.
Good to be here, there.
Yes.
Good to be somewhere.
Yes, in remote land, right?
Yep.
How are you doing? What's up?
Doing okay. I'm just surviving the plague, hiding out here, doing a little of this, a little of that.
Yeah.
spending all my savings on existence.
Indeed. All of it. Everything must go. That you can't take anything with you, right?
No, enjoying the time, but has its price.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the only good takeaway is all the extra time, right?
Yeah, it's great. I've been loving that. So I don't think I've been in one place. I know I haven't been in one place this long since high school, probably.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
Yes. So you have the unique pleasure of being. Your episode's going to air on Valentine's Day. I just looked at my. I looked at my little rollout schedule I made.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone!
But this is January 6th, where all the shit is hitting the fan.
Yeah, it is.
So
kind of amazing.
I've been completely inundated, and you're just, you said you just started hearing about stuff.
Yeah, I'm about a half hour into inundation.
Oh my God!
Which is, I think, it's a lot. A half hour is a lot to deal with that right now.
Yeah, this is a good break. I needed this break, so thank you for.
Yeah, I got to be honest. It's good to take a break in general because I think it's unhealthy because it's so easy and so addictive to be constantly getting updated on everything every second.
Yeah.
With the illusion that you're in it when you're not in it, really. If I look out my window, I'm in a very different place.
Yes.
Not that I don't want to know what's going on and be up to date, but there's also just the reality of there's a lot of things going on at any given time in the universe.
Indeed.
And we tend to think that as humans, what's going on for us is the most important thing. And as Americans, we really think what is going on for us is the most important thing.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
But it's hard not to watch, it's hard not to watch this right now. I had to pull away because I just, like I said, I just started watching. So, I was like, whew.
Yeah, man. Well, let's talk about
mesmerizing.
Let's talk about music a little bit, and we can get into some politics if you want.
Sure.
So music. What do you got going on? I know you have things happening, even though the touring is not happening.
Well, I've got this whole time a lot less going on in general, but I've been doing a few little things here and there. Early on in the plague, I did a bunch of streaming, sort of benefit concerts. That was all the rage,
Right.
And did a couple, things like that. At this point right now, I'm working on putting together something that's going to be streamed later this month through University of Mexico. It's
is that with
Todd?
Is that with
no,
Todd?
it's through this amazing promoter there, Claudia Curiel, and she's been in a program there for professionals basically, and they have funding because they're basically dealing with I guess the course or the program is all about how to promote music, how to present music.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really like a school for students, it's a school for existing promoters and people like that. And so she got into the program, and they have a budget for live concerts with no live concerts happening. So she managed to work out a situation where she got some money together to pay some musicians to do, it's basically 5 solo sets of 20 to 25 minutes, and then one group set, a sort of little marathon that I put together. And we did most of it, or a lot of it, up here at Applehead Studios in Woodstock. And then a few people are just doing it on their own just because they're more comfortable.
Nice.
Recording at their place, then bringing it here. So it's it's going to be Marc Ribot solo guitar, Zena Parkins solo harp, Jen Shu doing a multi-instrumental singing and solo thing. I'm playing a solo set, and Yuka Honda is doing sort of an electronic solo set and video. Nice. And then the group was myself, Charlie Burnham, Allison Miller on drums, and Billy Martin on percussion.
Nice.
Yeah, so that'll be coming out sometime in the next month, which is kind of cool.
Did you your solo set? Did you do acoustic or your
piano?
Whole...
Yeah, solo piano set. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
I remember I saw the stream of your full rig solo set.
That
summer.
That was that was like my one solo live gig all pandemic, that one.
I thought that was really beautiful, and I could almost see you doing a record of that.
Yeah, I would like to.
Yeah.
It's actually it's on the books right now. I'm going to make a record for John Zorn's label, solo keyboards. It might be a little more extreme than that set was, but I also want to do something like that too.
Extreme is good, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing I've been doing. Like Zorn, I did a recording with Zorn with his band. It's called Simulacrum, which is sort of a heavy metal organ trio with Matt Hollenberg, Kenny Grahowski. But this one also had Brian Marsala on electric piano. And then we've got a couple of those coming up. We actually canceled one this month because of the spike in.
Yeah.
We were going to record actually a couple of days ago, but we decided to wait.
Yeah. And
so just sitting it out, man.
Saw something. Do you have something on Friday? I saw something on your website, something with the word, or is that like a re-stream or something?
Oh, that might be my website not being updated. We were originally going to be doing something at Levon's Barn.
Right.
I think that's postponed.
Oh yeah.
I got to update my website, man. Thanks.
Yeah. No,
we did a gig together. You and I did a gig together outdoors.
That was so fun. I loved it.
At the Falcon.
I loved that, and it was also so weird. Like just the whole. I think that was the first time I performed since late February.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was good. I really enjoyed. I love those tunes, and I love the Falcon. That's a great spot.
Yeah, I mean, I love that Tony's so dedicated. He always has been dedicated to make it happen, and he's still dedicated to it in whatever way he can, even in this weird sort of everybody wearing masks and distanced and outdoors. But it was great. I did one other gig with Ribot there too, like an organ trio gig with Marc Ribot, and that was fun too.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have this strange hopefulness, although I probably prior to this I tend to go the more cynical direction.
Yeah,
and
to hear you say hopeful, I'm like,
no,
what?
I've seen that happen. I've seen that flip. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like you have no choice. Like, what are you gonna do? But I'm just like I have a lot of hope for music and the arts and for community for some reason. I don't know. I mean, I've seen a shift in myself and in a lot of people I work with and know, who really just want to keep this all going and keep plugging away and support each other. And for me, it's been really, solidifying, reinforcing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think it's kind of complex, because, I mean, if you think about the music business, it probably couldn't get more unsupportive than it has been pre-pandemic.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it's like I was originally one of those Napster, Spotify, pure evil, ruining.
I'm still one of those people.
No, it's like there's it's part of a certain cycle that happened. I mean, I do think it is kind of tragic, for us, for musicians to be like in a position where our recorded material is worthless, basically.
Right.
But it was sort of common if you think about it. I mean, the record companies weren't that great. Record deals were no good either, And to have these companies with these big offices spending all kinds of money, tons of people just working their 9-to-5 jobs. There's a lot of fat in the record business, and people felt that they didn't want to support that anymore. The artists weren't getting all the money. Certain artists did really well anyway. I don't know. It's, I think it's complicated.
You don't think that the sort of market capital that an artist can gain from that level of support kind of makes that arrangement worthwhile? You know what I'm saying? Yeah and no, but I also think it's kind of a bit of an illusion, because the way, I mean, at least before things really shifted, the way it was working, it was like it wasn't, sure, for like Joni Mitchell or people, but Miles back in the day, it was great, Coltrane was able to record all this great music, because, but I think,
what it turned into, like after the, especially in the 80s and onward, it really became a situation of like every record was supposed to sell more.
Right.
And if it didn't, you got dropped.
Right.
Unless, it wasn't like in the days where where like Stevie Wonder was allowed to make a record that, sold a lot than another one, or, people were allowed to be creative and make records. And there was a bigger picture of supporting art, supporting an artist. Mm-hmm. And that was gone. It was just a bottom line, mm-hmm. And I feel like so that, you get this market support for a minute, but unless you are growing in a way that fits, something that's sellable,
right,
you're out.
Right.
But and that's sort of, and I feel like in a way, like in addition to the technology advancing faster than the record companies did, I just feel like that's kind of what happened. It's like people know that, they feel that, they see that, they don't want to support that. I don't think people think they're not supporting musicians. I think they think they're not supporting this screwed up business, right, that's been screwing musicians for years. I mean, how many we hear about these great artists from the early rock days that didn't have their publishing, didn't make any money, so I think just that history, that tainted history, has turned people against the whole thing. So I guess what led me to that was the fact that you were saying you're feeling people wanting to support again, and that to me is good to hear, because that's what it's about. It's about supporting, feeling the need to support again, to support arts and music.
Well, I didn't necessarily mean the consumers or the fans, but I mean like within creative communities. I'm feeling that, especially in the city, especially amongst people who are already sort of colleagues. The fans thing, that's another battle.
But I think one thing leads to another, and I think that is kind of key. What you just said, because it's really important for artists to stick together. It's important for artists to support each other.
Absolutely.
When I moved to New York in like '89 or whatever, I started being there. It was like, that's the way it was. I mean, we were out every night seeing somebody, check us about hanging out. It was like, the scene was more concentrated in certain neighborhoods than it became when it kind of like spread all over Brooklyn. When as the poor artists got sort of booted out of their neighborhoods. But it's important for there to be a scene, a community. Yeah. And it's about like, again, getting to the point where like, why are we making music? Making music for the original reason we got into it in the first place.
Yeah.
Not for a career, but for its own sake and for the necessity of it, for what it brings us, how it brings us together, for how all the things that music does,
Yeah, cool. So New York in 1989, I was kind of in and out at that point. My mother lived in Brooklyn in the late 80s, so
right.
I have a vague infantile impression of New York of the 80s.
Right. Well, that's kind of we probably met a little before that.
You and I?
Yeah.
No.
In Boston, right?
No. We didn't meet in Boston.
What? I met you in New York.
No, we met in, okay, so I remember it. I had to go and look because I'm a ticket stub keep collector, right?
Yeah.
I have a little book I keep. The only ticket stub I don't have is my first concert, which was Frank Zappa in 1988.
Wow.
But I have everything else. So I had to look back on it. It was 1998 at the Lisner Auditorium in D.C., which was when we met.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was 23 years ago.
Wow.
Right.
Oh, so I met you. So that was through Scott. Through
Scott. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
And I was thinking about that going into this interview. I was remembering that I was not really aware of you before that. I was in that band with Scott, and he's like, "Yeah, my friend, he's coming into town. He's like, any of your band want to come check me out?" And like nobody wanted to go, or like they had family, they just couldn't go, or whatever. I was like, "Oh, I'll go. I'm 18 years old, whatever."
Yeah.
So I brought my friend who now is like my web person and one of my partners. Still to this day. And to me, it was like a revelation because I had been in this place of like, I was playing blues and kind of hard rock, psychedelic stuff, funk, moving into funk. And then I was going into jazz and in jazz school. And for me, that iteration, that version of the band, especially what you were doing, kind of helped me bridge that. You know, because obviously you were in the improvisational context, in the jazz tradition, but it was funky and it was also really trippy and it was heavy. Like I remember I was really into heavy like hard rock bands that had organ before I met you. So I was like into Keith Emerson and like Rick Wakeman and John Lord. And I always wanted to ask you, were you ever into those guys?
You know, interestingly enough, not deeply. Like I didn't check that stuff out a lot. I mean, I came to it from a jazz, a jazz world. And I think, but I think there's just some, just the crossover for me. It was more like Hendrix,
Sure. Yeah,
Dead Kennedys.
Ah.
I mean, it was like, it was sort of like
Holiday in Cambodia.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, because I really...
That spirit.
I don't know.
You mean that spirit of just...
Well, just like, I think it's just sort of the nature of, I mean, I don't really know, but I mean, I guess it's not that dissimilar, everybody you named, what everybody's doing,
Yeah.
We're playing this music. We all love blues and R&B, but we're not those guys, and we're trying to be ourselves and play music.
Right.
And also, liking the heavy... and that's how it just ends up coming out,
It's funny because at that concert, I was almost like reminded of some of the early Emerson, Lake and Palmer instrumental stuff, where he would just trash the B3 and like stick knives in it and do anything he could to get the craziest sounds out of it. I was like, this is like totally reminding me of that shit. And so from then on, I saw how one can bridge all that music. I mean, the bridges are there because they're all blues based, but like, for me, it was like, okay, this is a way forward. Yeah.
Cool.
So I got totally, I have to admit, I was totally hooked. I mean, other than Parliament Funkadelic, your band is the band I've seen the most. I think I counted.
That can't be good for you.
I've seen Parliament Funkadelic one time less than I've seen you guys.
Oh, jeez, that's bad. We gotta fix that.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I guess that was always the mission, I think, and it's interesting. I don't know. It's just for me, that was always kind of it. It was about like loving to improvise. Loving jazz, like really being into jazz, but then actually growing up in the 70s and 80s in South Florida, which had its own music culture, you know what I mean? And I think it was probably at some point, I sort of had two kind of pivotal, at some point, when I was in school in Boston and I was playing in a blues band, playing organs. That's really when I really got into organ. It was like, playing 6-7 nights a week with this blues band, going to school, studying whatever, everything, especially getting more into more avant-garde, classical music, free, really getting, the outest thing possible, and playing jazz gigs, big band stuff. And I'm surprised, just like, I was just, I fancied I was going to be a jazz guy, jazz musician. And then something hit me. I was just like, wait a minute, I really need to I got to be who I really am, Because if I'm just going to play at playing jazz, it's not really... Right. I'm never going to be doing what those guys did. They were themselves, They were being who they were at the time. So it really hit me. It kind of hit me early on, and then that was sort of like what I dedicated, that was sort of my inner, like, pain and, trying to figure out who am I? White guy from Florida, hey. Right. Trying to, who loves all this other music, and, like, dealing with that. And... just trying to be honest, really try to get that honesty of, and so I think that's where it all kind of comes from, like, loving jazz, loving improvisation, of any kind, like just loving to improvise, and also loving groove music and dance music, and and so like how do you how to bring all that together, and a lot of what we were doing was also a complete and utter rejection or no, that's a terrible way to say it. I should say a sort of a re-examining of like the fusion concept.
It kind of, there was a little bit of the punk edge to it, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because for me that was more about like, hey, like I want to focus on the fact that James Brown, stays on one chord for a really long time to groove.
Right.
Not see how many cool chords I can. I mean, I could play all those chords. It's not like it's not about that. It's like I love chords,
right.
And I love harmony, and I love, and I spent a lot of time studying that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
But then it came down to like, well, wow, man, there's something about repetition that's really key to grooving, and there was a certain thing that, kind of for me like started disappearing in sort of the more electric jazz, fusion jazz stuff that certainly just raw groove, like that, like it became less about the groove and more about the changes and the hits and the fancy stuff.
Right.
And I think, in a certain way that whole, that era where Brazilian music and jazz was blending, I think it was, there's some incredible music, but I think that there was a certain thing that the American jazz guys did with that they lost something that the Brazilian cats had. There's a certain they oh, it's so sexy, these chords and this, but what was sexy about it was how like loose
right.
the groove is and how loose things actually really are, what the feel is. And then when you put those sweet chords and melodies on it, it's like it just feels awesome. And I think like we sort of somewhere, and so a lot of what we did was about like not doing that, about being raw and approaching composition from a more DJ perspective, and I don't know, kind of just embracing everything that was happening around us,
Right. But Brazilian jazz was a big influence on you. I mean, I look at those old Hermeto Pascoal videos and it's totally like he almost has a similar rig, just like every keyboard ever.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, there's John. That's totally. I'm wondering, like, did he inspire you to do that? Because you were coming out of a time like in the '80s where it was like, oh, I have my one Korg synthesizer and I'll just punch in a patch, and like everybody was kind of doing that thing.
Yeah, there were a lot of people doing a lot of things in the '80s.
No, but you know what I mean. That was kind of like had become the standard.
Again,
right?
like I think, and I don't know, maybe this was a bit of a punk rock mentality or something. I don't know, but for me, there was a lot of stuff happening at that time that in my figuring out who I am, that just didn't make sense to me, and that was one of them, and I liked, we first tried to tour with a digital piano because we started as a piano trio, and I just couldn't deal with playing this fake piano. And and even now, like the digital pianos, they're fine for sounding like a piano, but you don't really get your own touch. You don't get your own tone. And every piano player has their own. Every human being has their own touch when they play the piano. You can tell, and you can tell somebody just from one chord who it is, by their touch. Unless their touch is an imitation of someone else's. But I mean, most people you can tell, like, oh, that's so and so. Whoever. That's Arthur Rubinstein. That's Bill Evans. That's Herbie. That's Kenny Barron. It's like it's like a voice. It's weird. I don't know. The piano is an amazing instrument like that is capable, that somehow this mechanical thing can be that diverse, So I hated the digital piano. So that's why I started playing organ with those guys, because I was like, I want to play a real instrument. And then it was like, what can I love Wurlitzer. I love the Ray Charles stuff, Aretha. So I'm just going to get a Wurlitzer too for the piano thing. And then the guy I got the Wurlitzer from was like, hey, the next time it was in Atlanta. He's like, hey, have you ever checked out a clavinet? Let me check out a clavinet. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then it was check out the Melotron, ARP string ensemble. And the next thing you know, I'm checking all these things out. And then when if I go check out the one keyboard that has a million sounds, not one sound in that keyboard is nearly as cool as any of these sounds. Each one is a whole world of its own. I mean, the clavinet has it's strings.
Yeah.
Being kind of sort of semi-plucked or pressed, and it's like that's different than the Wurlitzer hitting reeds or the organ, which is a whole other thing. And there was something about for me, each instrument is its own world, its own little universe. Instead of a keyboard that had a million sort of imitation universes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So for me it was about that, and then I had to get the right amp for it became a thing.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be a piano player, and that's next thing I know I'm surrounded with all this stuff. But for me it just provided different colors. It's like okay, it was cheaper than hiring another band member.
There you go.
Clavinet instead of a guitar player.
That's right. Yeah.
Who needs
them?
With.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned color. Do you know what synesthesia is? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Do you experience that? Because I do big time, and that's one of the things I love about your playing is like I just get this rush of color. And then all the different dimensions to especially when you have the full setup with all the different keyboards, it's just like a candy store for me, for the listener.
Well, I don't really see colors, but I definitely, I think in terms of colors. I think that way, definitely very much, I mean, I like a good melody too, but there's also like you can get into what is a melody, it's
right.
like, So yeah, I'm really I'm into that textural color thing.
Yeah. I think it's not for me so much of seeing colors, but it's sensing colors.
Yeah.
And I also have this thing with my taste that happens, and that's kind of how I fish for my own tone. Is that
what does your tone taste like?
Well, my I salivate when I know I have the right tone, right? And so it is very varying degrees, right? So but going back to we were talking about the digital synthesizer thing. One of the people I have worked closely with in various Vernon Reed, who does the parallel processing thing, right? Which I cannot wrap my mind around at all. So he has an analog chain and he has a digital chain, and he's always like, "Man, you got to get into this and this and this processor and that," and I'm just like I love what he does with it. I love what other people do with it. But for me, I really need it to be as simple as possible. It's really about like my skin on this metal, on the wood, the electricity, just that. It starts from there, and then you add things. Yeah. And for me,
a cable into an amp.
The digital thing really, and I would get a lot of guff from band leaders like, "Oh, you don't use enough effects. Yeah, so I've wrestled with that quite a bit too, that sort of love-hate relationship with the digital medium.
Yeah, I mean, I just had, I'm not, it's almost just more, for me, it's just a scientific fact. A real Hammond sounds better than a digital Hammond, period. There's no even question mark about that. And same with all these instruments. Mm-hmm. I mean, sure, a digital Whirly is nice because it doesn't close. It doesn't go out of tune. It's easy, and it's a hell of a lot easier to play, than having to change the reeds on a Whirly. But there's certain things about the low notes on a real Whirly. There's I don't know. Yeah, Clavinet too does not cut it. Yeah. Digital clav.
Well, if you had to go digital for any of those, probably a clav or a Whirly over a piano or a Hammond,
Yeah, clav, I would just leave it out, honestly. Yeah. Wurlitzer, I might have used one once in a while. Yeah. And I actually really do like the new digital Melotron.
Oh yeah.
Hate to say it.
What was the record you did? Was it called Melotron Variations recently?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that in 2020 or? It's very recent, right?
I think it was 2019 when we recorded it. I'm really bad with that kind of stuff, but that was a really fun project with 4 Melotrons. Actually 8 because we each had a old Melotron and a digital Melotron.
Right.
And came up with a bunch of music for it, and it was a live performance in Memphis. It was fun.
Would you consider the Melotron to be the first sampler?
Yeah, I mean,
the first synthesizer?
Well, I think it. Right. It is. I mean, except it's tape. It's like you record something on a tape and stick it on. You press a key to play. It rolls the tape across and you play it. I mean, that's. Right. I think it's the first. I don't think there was any other. I mean, it's definitely right. I mean.
Yeah. I just remember you reaching into it and
Well, that's the thing that I like.
manipulating the tape.
That's what I like about the real one. It's got a it's this. There's a motor in it. It's spinning, and that's what pulls the tape across at the right speed, so that whatever note you're playing, it's the right note.
Yeah.
So there's a motor in it, but when you bend it, you can change it, and just the sound of tape bending is awesome. And you can't do that with the digital, but the digital has every single sound or ever available from Melotron Chamberlain.
Well, does it at least
kind of cool.
Does it at least have like a pitch bend wheel? Or
It does have
something?
a pitch bend, and I've messed around with it, but you can't. There's nothing like slowing tape down. But yeah, you can still. I do some. I mess around with it.
Yeah. I actually saw. I don't know if you saw this new Bee Gees documentary. Whether you're a fan or were a fan or not, it's a pretty cool documentary. But they talk about the tracking of Staying Alive, and apparently that was the first time drums were sampled and looped on a record. Because like their drummer, I think, had to leave town because one of his parents was sick, and they were like, well, we could just take this beat from this other track and it's still him technically. And they had this whole thing where they took the tape out and looped it around, a mic stand. And they're like, and they just built it from that. And it was like totally worked. But I had no idea that
I did not know that was
pretty
a loop.
Interesting.
That's
it's
pretty
a
wild.
loop. Yeah. From one of their other tunes they recorded.
Wow, I didn't know that. I got to watch that movie.
It's pretty.
I
good.
like the Bee Gees.
I like them too. And it used to be when I was growing up, you couldn't say you liked the Bee Gees or you get teased. But I don't give a fuck. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up. I mean, I was in high school in the '70s. Come on.
Yeah.
That's what that was like. That was a big part of the dance. Dances.
But that stuff grooves. The song structure and everything is just great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
totally.
Would this technically be the 30th anniversary of MMW this year? Like how do you?
Yeah, we are in 2021.
How do you count it? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it is totally 30 years. Don't think we're going to be doing much, but
you got to do some. I mean, maybe a reissue. Do you guys have any like unearthed live stuff from that first year? Maybe.
Most because of the nature of it. Every single thing is out there somewhere in some freaking thing.
Yeah.
There's like we can't. There's nothing we can release that no one's heard. What we do probably have is some cool video footage and stuff, which we taught a class through the Creative Music Studio in fall, early winter, and we pulled out a bunch of stuff. Billy had a bunch of stuff that we showed to the students and stuff. It was cool. So we can maybe do something like that.
I think the earliest footage I've seen of you guys that's like online is from like '93. That Lucille's.
Oh yeah, that was early
stuff, and that's very good.
We actually have something from Simon's Rock. That was the first gig we did out of New York City.
Nice.
In '91, right after we recorded the record, Notes from the Underground. Yeah.
Wow.
So that actually, I guess, but it's kind of a one camera.
Hey, what are you gonna do?
Ratty looking thing.
It's history. Yeah. It's good and it's important.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think the rest of this year is gonna look like? I know we're only a week into it, but
I really could say that I absolutely have no idea. When this all started, I thought it was gonna wrap up sooner than it did, even though I know some people said it wasn't going to, and it's just hard to know what's going on or where things are going. I mean, I guess in theory, maybe however things come back around when this, whatever it is that transforms this, I guess it'll be like the Roaring '20s, right? People are going to be dying for music.
I hope you're right.
I mean, I sort of, I don't know. I mean, the one thing I feel like would be really cool to see happen is somehow, and I know probably involves, some kind of streaming situation. I don't know and just people are not really buying it as much, the streaming thing, as far as music goes. Mm-hmm. Understandably, because usually it sounds pretty bad, but somehow get people dancing more in 2021.
Oh God, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I really hope you're right.
Probably what's happening today wouldn't be happening if everybody was dancing more.
Interesting. You mean politically or
every way?
Health
no, politically.
You dance the virus
out
of existence.
Who knows? Well, I mean, it would take some studies.
Yeah.
It would be great if it was that simple, wouldn't it?
All you have to do is dance. You don't need a vaccine.
Dance hard. Yeah. I mean,
sweat it out.
Yeah. You dodge it. It doesn't get you.
I'm kind of concerned about this. There's a lot of talk amongst musicians about, because a lot of us go overseas, and what's that going to look like when everything opens up again? Are you going to have like a little I got a vaccine stamp on your passport? Like that's just a lot of conversations that are, I don't know.
Yeah. A lot of big questions, I mean, I worry about that, but we'll see what it is, and we'll have to deal with it however we deal with it.
Yeah.
Or make decisions, figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it's hard to, there's not, most, I don't know what it is right now, but I know just even last month, like it's a lot of places we can't go as Americans because of the situation here.
I think there's only maybe 3 or 4 half dozen countries that will allow Americans in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mexico and I don't know. I know a couple African Peru.
Yeah. Yeah, it's right. There's some African countries that do too.
Yeah, they're like
Europe's not.
Yeah,
Europe's not really doing it.
Well, they're kind of a lot of countries, especially the UK. I think it's closed their borders completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to be in Europe a lot this year. I was very much looking. Well, 2020.
Really?
Oh yeah, 2020. I was going to be in Italy and Greece and Germany.
I think you can go to Italy.
No, I mean I was going to be working.
I
was going to be working. I don't know if you could go. Well, actually, my Stephanie and her family are working on getting Italian joint dual citizenship because there's some law like Steph's grandmother is from Italy.
Yeah, same with Debbie. Same thing.
Oh, really? Yeah. So I'm kind of on the fence about that. Part of me definitely wants an out.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's a lot of paperwork, and they're going through hell with it. But
yeah, and it's not as straightforward and easy as it seems. It's complicated.
I think Ribot is there a lot because I guess he's engaged.
Well, I think he bought a place over there, so he's got a place there. He's there right now, I think.
Nice. Yeah. Last time, because I've been meeting with this Music Workers Alliance.
Yep.
Online and
right on.
One of the last meetings, I guess it was right before Thanksgiving. He's like, I just got to Italy an hour ago, and it was like he was talking about this whole journey of like, just bullshitting various border agents. Like it just sounded like a nightmare. But
yeah,
he's like, it took something like 30 hours, whatever. I don't remember the number, but
he got there.
Yeah, he got there, and so I guess he's still there. But I really appreciate the efforts of the Music Workers Alliance because they're kind of addressing a lot of these issues that a lot of, especially the 802 and the other musicians' unions are not addressing.
802 has not been doing anything.
Well, they're just not addressing the digital thing, and they're not addressing the way music is sort of loosely quoted commodified. And
no, they don't address any creative. I mean, they don't address anything except for very, Broadway, classical music. They don't, they don't address any of this, any of the real working musicians, issues because they can't. They don't know how. They don't, I mean, I haven't dealt with them in a long time.
Yeah.
But the last time I went there, they didn't have a computer. They had file cards for everybody.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
But, no, the Workers Alliance is great. Ribot is a champion.
Mm-hmm. And he knows about all. He can name the laws. He's like, oh, it's the Taft-Hartley Act that minimizes union power, and it's from like 100 years ago, and it's like he's like really on it. Yeah,
he's on it.
It's pretty amazing.
And I think it's really true. And I'm glad somebody's saying it because I've been feeling like that for a long time. It's sort of weird how the arts have been treated during the pandemic. That like you can go to a bar and get completely shit-faced and take your mask off because you're so drunk and stupid, but you can't go sit.
Well, you can't do that here, but in a lot of places, yeah.
Well, you could for a minute.
Well, no, not now. Nothing. Yeah, in the summer you could go.
In the summer you could,
Yeah.
Bars were open. People, even outdoors, and that you couldn't. That there wasn't some way to set up a venue to some capacity with the filters, whatever it is. The thing that we're all talking about. Just to set it up in some way that it, could work within the parameters that anything else can work. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I think there's an opportunity though, like, because this Save Our Stages Act passed in this latest bill. I mean, that's kind of would have seemed inconceivable 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Also,
Totally.
that musicians and other 1099 workers were able to get on unemployment. I mean, that was a big lifesaver for a lot of people. And a few years ago, inconceivable. So I don't know. I'm kind of like trying to really look at the positive in all of this, because it's like I have no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I do see opportunity. I see opportunity to develop stronger structures and gain more leverage, especially when it comes to like legislation and just having better standards, work standards. I think there's possibility there.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time, when there was more sort of general government support of the arts
In the States,
all kinds.
you mean? Yeah.
In the States, but especially in Europe, but it's dwindled everywhere.
Yeah.
It's been petering out. I don't know why.
It's funny because, like, 80s was the Reagan era in here. I was growing up and all the arts programs free. When I was in DC, it was like I was in art school my whole life, and these were free public programs, and it's like they were my foundation. And now a lot of these schools are closing or have very minimal funding.
Oh, forget it. I mean, a few years ago we played a benefit just to try to raise enough money for the one music teacher's salary at Saugerties High School.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting, I mean, I'd like to just sort of entertain the argument now, since there's no way to disprove it, that like the reason we're in this state right now is because of the lack of music and the lack of its importance in society. The reason shit's falling apart right now today is because people don't listen to enough music. They don't dance enough. It's not part of their lives. It's become this sort of considered entertainment as opposed to a part of our life. And that's a real, in the West, that's a real thing.
Or even less wallpaper, because I don't even know if people really listen like that.
Some people do, but you're right. I mean, in general, like, we don't as a culture, and we don't value it. I think it's like probably our best language. In terms of something that we've created. You got mathematics, you got spoken language, written language, but music, is this incredible combination of both. And this, I don't know, and we don't. It's just not part of our lives. And I think there's, why that is, who knows. But I'd like to just say that's the reason for why everything's so fucked up. Because prove me wrong.
I can't. Hey, the burden of proof is on you, sir. No, I don't disagree. I mean, I have this funny theory though, and going back to one of our earlier points, I almost feel like, as bad as the music business may have been prior to the digital era, that the message of a lot of artists had more impact. Like right now, it seems inconceivable that you could have like a John Lennon or a Bob Marley saying Imagine or One Love, and like people of all types are kind of together on that message, And could that have existed without such a huge sort of evil corporate structure that was exploiting that?
Well, I don't think that. I think that it wasn't. The structure was just being created back then. I don't think it was evil. I think it was like, whoa, this is happening. Like, we're selling records. People didn't believe it, but a lot of people didn't think, oh, this is not going to stick. Rock and roll is not going to stick. I mean, that was but I do also. But I think there's a lot going on. I mean, now there's just so much more music. Like back then, it was because of the technology. It wasn't easy to get that much out. So we had these couple of records, and thank God some of them were really great. But now there's a ton of stuff out there. It's just hard to keep up with it all.
Yeah. Steph gets these Spotify playlists like based on her listening preferences every week or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like one incredible track after the other. And
Yeah.
the musicianship and production and songwriting. And I'm just like, who is this? And it's like every week I'm learning about 10 people I've never heard of. It's like insane.
Yeah.
There's
It's
so much.
pretty wild.
That's why like people, I know people, all their consumption is like on FM radio. And they're like, oh, there's no good music. There's no music now. I'm like, you're not looking. You're not.
Well, I mean, and that's where I got to say this Spotify model is good.
In a way, it's good. Yeah. You could make the argument that it's like music is.
And if you end up on one of these playlists and you end up out there, you do make a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
People do make some money when they end up in these sort of algorithms or whatever they call it.
Right.
You got to get, but yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that's also the theory behind why it could be great, is because like cable television, if everyone subscribes, then there's more money in the pool. Blah blah blah.
Right.
That's sort of what they claim.
I'd like to see it go, and I realize it's not as sort of open source Netflix and Hulu, but their model is very successful. Even for the content creators, it's a sustainable, good model, and I'd like to see that kind of translate into music. However, one of the main things is like anybody can get their shit on Spotify. Like you can make something on your phone and go through an aggregate and get it on Spotify, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Netflix is giving you money to create content for Netflix.
Well, that's my thing. Is why are these services not doing that? Why are they not creating content?
They are doing that with some people. Like Joe Rogan's podcast moved to Spotify, and he got like $15 million contract or something.
Yeah, but he's not making records of music.
No, I know that, but
He's blabbing away out there.
I think
I'm just saying, like I'm talking
artists,
about but they're not doing it for music. They're not helping people make great records. And they have all this money, and that's what they should be doing. The way Netflix, the way HBO, and all these people have done, they've created some actual really cool, epic multi-episode films. Some of that, some of it's.
Yeah.
And they've also, I don't know, and it's just like I do feel like they should be more. Spotify could be, could help create a higher level of quality by helping to create content. I mean, the problem is that nobody listens to anything on anything good. So since everything's just basically like everything's just MP3s, what's the point? Whereas like HBO, you can watch it on your big gigantic freaking amazing multi-dimensional television and be visually blown away. And that's another sort of theory that I think if the technology was set up so that we could hear things in a really high quality, it would change what people want from music and how they want it. If we had, and then the technology is kind of out there. It's just not embedded into our phones and into our computers yet. It's not part of it. But there are ways of of creating, much more high resolution listening situations, that with the right headphones or the right speakers. But and then again, or is it is it because it's not available, or is it because people really don't care?
I think some people don't care. It is available. Do you remember this Pono thing? You remember that? Did you ever listen to anything through? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just like high resolution digital files.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or were they like FLAC files? I'm not.
Yeah, and I've heard there were other people doing that, other versions of that similar technology back in the day, not back in the day, 10, 15 years ago. And there's some cool stuff. I mean, it's kind of, stuff sounds amazing if you have a nice set of headphones but it's about like really the phone having the right software to open these things up. It's not a lot of memory or anything. It's just about like somehow getting it to be part of the package.
Right.
I don't know how that happens.
Then there's always like, I still like all even these.
I hear you.
You can think, what do you?
I hear that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Can't beat it. It can't beat the vinyl. Sorry.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I still put it on all the time.
Yeah.
Even though unfortunately I have yet to be on a vinyl release.
What?
Yeah, it's just
Come on.
it's just I know, right? I'm looking
What?
forward to that day, right? Yeah.
Wait a minute. I find that hard to believe.
I've never been on any vinyl. As far as I know, I don't think so. It's so expensive now.
Okay, well, that should be something you remedy. Oh, it is.
Yeah, that's going to be my goal.
2021.
I was going to put out the record I put out in, my thing I did in February on vinyl, but it was just like, oh my God, this is too expensive.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like $10 a unit just to manufacture it or something like that.
Right, and then there's a minimum number, and are you going to be able to sell that many?
But
are you going to break
sound.
even? Yeah, no, it's nothing like it.
Yeah.
No, I don't really. I've rarely listened to anything that I do, but I forgot one. I think it was Combustication. I found an old vinyl of it and I stuck it on.
Oh, I bet that sounds awesome.
Well,
yeah.
just like the bass sounds like it's in the room.
That's
It
right.
sounds like there's an amp in the room. Like a bass player's playing, and there was just Chris. It was like, oh man, it really is. I mean, we listen to vinyl here, but I don't listen to my own shit ever, as little as possible. But it was kind of cool to hear that. And just there's Chris.
Nice. I would. My favorite MMW record is The Dropper, I think.
Good choice.
That takes me back to a time. I feel like it was a really nice balance of like your experimental side and the groove stuff and the improvisation. I love that record.
Well, it definitely leans towards the experimental for a lot of people, but I think I might agree.
I love The Dropper and Tonic, the Tonic acoustic record.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear those on vinyl. I'd have the CDs, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll see if I can drum up a Dropper vinyl for you.
Oh yeah.
Tonic's not on vinyl, I don't think. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, we got to figure some stuff out this year, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We will. I mean, honestly, it's a good time. I mean, as you know, part of being a musician or an artist is it's about practicing, spending time alone with your instrument, and this is like a good time to be doing that right now. Spend time alone with whatever it is, It's just so easy. That's the thing. It's hard. I'm trying to train myself right now, to do stuff, the discipline of, because it's the beginning of the pandemic. I was like, I'm doing everything, doing my yoga, I'm exercising, working on music, and then I don't know what happened, man. It just derailed through the winter.
So yeah,
completely derailed. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, it's time to do it again. Because this is the time to do it right now. Because things are, it's harder to move around in the world right now because of whatever's going on. So how do you utilize that in the best way? For me, it's not like staring at my phone and Instagram and all that stuff.
Although, every now and then.
Yeah. You got to find out what's going on. But
you got to find all the good
but a perfect example of that is
jokes.
I didn't know what was happening today until a half hour before we started this,
Yeah.
So because somebody let us know, our daughter let us know,
I have a confession. I'm a total news junkie, and most people that grew up in DC are the same. It's like we're totally it's not good, but here's something quick I wanted to ask you. You mentioned practicing. I know you have that piano at your house, but I wanted to, because I'm a player that I rarely practice with my full electric rig. I know how it works. I do it. I check things. I do it from time to time, but I mostly just practice on an acoustic guitar. And I find that just I just have more to bring to the electric setting when I do it. When it's just I focus on the basic elements, And I'm wondering if you have a similar orientation to
100%.
piano.
I just, that's for me. Yeah, I mean the piano is just one of those instruments that there's, no matter how it's endless. Just in terms of growing on it,
Yeah.
And I think there's just so much music to be gotten out of it for me. And it's just about the music, working on music. I could do that on whatever. So I do, the piano is enough for me. I mean, there's obviously certain techniques on an organ that, you got to work on, but I spent so many years doing that every night, hours and every day, hours and hours and hours and hours, that now, for me, it's I like playing the piano as a way to create. And also I feel like, I learned this is something that someone, pointed out to me a long, long time ago, that it's really important to use your imagination when you compose and stuff, like to sit at a piano and like, or whatever instrument, and like, but then imagine, if you're writing for other instruments, imagine them, hear them in your head, don't just like play it into a computer and listen to it back. And that's cool too. It's fun. But I'm saying, like, for me, it's like, I like that. And I just always did that. So, I mean, people are writing great music with their computers too. But I'm saying, for me, it's just like, I don't need that. I like just having the piano.
Yeah.
And like, technically, like, what I need it's the best instrument for the hands, for me, in terms of getting my hands in shape, better than any, it's heavier touch, more complicated touch. So it's definitely the best one.
Same as guitar. Like, I can always tell guitar players who only play electric guitar. Like, you can just tell by their fingers. It's just,
Yeah. I mean, I think even on guitar, like, your sound is in your hands.
Absolutely. Linda Perry?
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a really cool video I saw about a week ago where she's talking about some situation in a studio where it dawned on her that it's really about the player and not about the gear, and how, like, she had these players coming in who just sounded like shit. And she's like, but this is really good gear. Like, why is this not sounding good? And then someone came in and picked up some shitty gear, and it was like, sounded like amazing. Yeah, it's totally. That's why I'm not a gearhead. All these guitar players are like, want to talk about gear, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about gear. Can we talk about everything except gear? Because I don't care. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah. You want to? Yeah. Let's talk about music. Let's talk about art, philosophy. Whatever. But talking about gear, it's like.
Yeah.
It's because it is kind of irrelevant, because you should be. I mean, yeah. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Gear. I mean, sure. It's I care about sound a lot, and I think about sound a lot, but when it comes to just making the music, it doesn't matter. It's like, if you have that luxury to like find the perfect amp for your perfect whatever and the best pedals, that's great, because it's just going to make it that much better and deeper and richer. But if you're not playing anything, it's not going to make any difference.
Yeah.
And it's funny to hear who focuses on the gear.
Well, some really amazing players are way into the gear, but
that's true.
I'm always very skeptical when someone comes at me wanting to talk about gear. It's like, I got this gear, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this.
That's it. That's our gear. What else you need?
That's the gear. Cool, man. Well,
it's a distraction, but it's a distraction, and it's also, I guess, it's something else to focus on. When let's say you have gotten really great, then, start working on thinking about gear. Or I mean, I guess I had a pretty gear phase, more vintagey stuff, but I had a total gear addiction.
Yeah.
Admit it.
Yeah. Well,
really getting into the amps, what amps, getting these old Fender amps and finding the right amp for the right keyboard. And so I understand the gear fetish. I shouldn't put it down, because I'm totally guilty.
Yeah.
I have that sort of weird mind, collector, addictive, mind. So
absolutely, yeah. I'm a bit that way too, But
the music really should come first. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited to hear and stay in touch about what you do this year, because I have no idea what I'm going to do this year. I've got a bunch of like old reissue stuff I'm going to put out this year, and I'm doing this show and.
Yeah, that's great. The show's a good idea. Good idea, man.
Other than that, I don't know what I'm going to do. Yeah, this is episode number 8. You're lucky 8. Valentine's Day,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Happy Valentine's Day. I'm going to be putting out I recorded this duo record with Kirk Joseph on cornet, all Sun Ra stuff that's going to come out sometime in the next few months too, which I'm excited about.
Nice. Just
trying to get stuff out. It's actually a good time to take care of some old ideas and projects right now.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm gonna focus on like because I did a solo guitar record around the same time you did but it was acoustic. So I'm feeling like an electric solo record at some point.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, and I can just do it at home.
Yeah, you can. That's it.
That's right.
Cool,
man. Well, anything you want to plug?
I got nothing, man. I wish I did.
Well, we
I
got
usually
your
have
website. We'll put your website
I
up.
usually
We'll put
do that. I usually have a lot. Yeah, maybe by Valentine's Day there'll be stuff on there to do. But right now I can't say.
Yeah, look, go to johnmedeski.com. Send him a Valentine.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
Hopefully things will simmer down in the political spectrum by then.
God, yeah. Actually, by the time you air this, we really, honestly, we have no idea
It's scary.
things are going to be like.
It's scary.
More than ever.
Scary and also not surprising.
And exciting.
That's an excitement I could do without.
I got no choice.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I appreciate it.
I love you dearly. I can't wait to get together again and do some playing and all that.
Hanging, playing,
yes,
all of it.
All of it.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Thank you, man.
Take care.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun. I want to thank John Medeski. Check him out, johnmedeski.com. Check out mmw.net. Check out all the wonderful things he's done. It's incredible. So much amazing music. As always, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Ben Tyree. If you'd like to donate, Venmo at Ben Tyree, Cash App, $ Ben Tyree. Sponsorships, hit me up. Contact at bentyree.net. Please stay in touch. Please keep watching. I thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Love each other. All we have is now. All we have is each other. I love you. Until next time. Happy Valentine's Day. Because this is airing on February 14th. My birthday is in 2 days. I'll be 41. So you can wish me a happy birthday on any of the platforms. But thank you again for watching. Much love. Take care. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Peace.